Hello, everyone. Welcome to Viz Review for this week, just before Tableau Conference. Let me know if you're going to Tableau Conference. Let me know if you're dialed in live today. If you are going to Tableau Conference, you should check out the live Makeover Monday session that Andy is hosting, which is on the Tuesday. I believe it's possibly Tuesday morning. I don't have the agenda in my head, but if you're going to Tableau Conference, go to the Makeover Monday live session, say hi to Andy, participate live. I think it's going to be a whole lot of fun. They have been in the past, and yeah, that'll be really good to do. Now, let me share my screen with all of you. Chrome tab, window. Here we go. So I need to just, I'm working from a single screen right now. So I will quickly start with, where do you find this data if you haven't done this review yet or haven't done Makeover Monday yet? You go to makeovermonday.co.uk/data. And for every week this year, you will find the data set, the links to the videos that we're doing, and the source of the data. So we are in week 18. Can you believe it? Week 18. How many people earned the federal minimum wage or less in each state? Let's have a quick look at the original. There's an article, and if it loads, there is a viz. So there's a map with shading for each state depending on the percentage of the workers making minimum wage or less. So you can see where the wages are quite low. Oh my God, no. And that's the basis for this week's Makeover Monday. So let's have a look. And actually, Lisa, let's have a look what Lisa has created. Hers popped up first, and I don't think we've looked at Lisa's work before, at least not in this review. So let's do that. And just quickly checking, I don't see any comments. Okay, good to go. US population working at or below minimum wage. Have US states decreased their population percentage at, that's quite a mouthful. I'm already struggling. Have the US states decreased their population percentage at or below minimum wage? When you say it out loud, you'll probably notice that's a lot to wrap your head around. Can you say that in plain English? Can you say that in a simple sentence? And as I look out to the garden, can you say it in a way you would describe this to a friend at a barbecue? Now, I don't like thinking about how would you say it to your grandma or to your mother, because what if your grandma is an astrophysicist or, like some very early data person and is completely clued up? Like, let's not assume that grandmas and mothers are incapable of understanding data. Let's call it layperson or the barbecue test. I think that's a nice neutral description, because anyone at a barbecue you talk to, at least adults, they should understand what this is about if you describe it to them. So I would change that subtitle a little bit to make it clearer what we're looking at here, what the question is. And I can see there's a baseline year and there's a comparison year. Inner color and outer color. I find, so the colors are nice. I like that. But within the colors, you also have the shading. So there's a lot going on, because we have the labels for the state. And as somebody who doesn't live in the States, yes, I roughly know where the different states are, but I will use that information. I can't ignore that because it's relevant for me, because I'm like, oh yeah, like every time I look at the two letters, I will think about the name of the state. It's not an automated process that my brain just kind of glazes over. And then on top of that, I have orange. I need to remember, what does orange stand for? So it's the baseline year, but it's not just any orange, it's shades of orange, and then shades of blue for the comparison year. So that's quite a lot for me to process in my head, to interpret, okay, what has happened in Alabama compared to Montana, for example. So in Alabama, it looks like it has gone down. So well, I can't actually see. Oh yeah, the baseline was 5.6%, so it was darker than the inside, and and then the inside is the year that I've chosen as comparison. But because it says baseline year in orange and comparison year, well, sometimes the baseline is also blue, like Washington and Alaska, for example. And sometimes the comparison year is also orange and not blue. So I find that quite confusing. And as I'm looking at this, I'm thinking it should just be a single color. So not a divergent color palette from blue to orange. It could just be shades of blue or shades of orange, like a single color on a spectrum. Because then what you could say is if the inside is lighter than the outside, there has been positive progress. So, well, assuming that fewer people on minimum wage today compared to the past means people are earning more, if that's the assumption we can make. If it's the other way around, if the inside is darker than the outside, then that means there's been, like a step back. But of course, it also changes depending on what you use as a baseline year. So I think the flexibility that you give us here, Lisa, is actually making it potentially harder for people to figure out what's going on. Because if I flip this around and I say my baseline is 2021, and I can't change, comparison year is 2015, then it's reversed. And if I said previously the inside is lighter than the outside, well, that doesn't now work. I love the visual itself. So it's nice and clean. I love the little arrow. I like the positioning of the text. Nice and neat. The filters where they are. Like, I think all of that works really well. I would just say that the map, I love a tile map as well. Nice and neat. It's just a lot for me to process in my head and to make sense of it, because the flexibility of giving people filters means that any example you use or you put in there has to be very specific, and if they change something, it still has to apply and be true. Let's have a look further down. So which US state has been doing the worst and the best? With regard to what? Now, I understand it's minimum wage, but remind people, because, as I scroll down, all that context from before has disappeared. So make it a bit clearer how you qualify what's best and what's worst. And then we're looking at, okay, so the first chart is 2015, the second one is 2021. But the 2015, the way it is displayed, looks like it relates to Alabama, and the 2021 looks like relates to Louisiana for me. So if those are basically the headings of each chart to give us the time frame or the point in time, I would put it in the center of the chart so that it doesn't relate to any specific bar. So Louisiana has the greatest population percentage. It should really be the greatest share of population, or the percent, or the largest percentage of the population, rather than population percentage, working at or below minimum wage. Okay, so that's that first bar. It would be nice, so up the top, you use that arrow. It would be really nice to connect the word Louisiana to that bar, because not all of the state names are displayed at the bottom, so it's a bit harder for people to see. Also, the axes are not synchronized. So the right goes to 3, the left goes to 6. They look the same. Why not fix it at, whatever, it's like 6.5 or so. So these actually are lower, so you can see a true comparison. But yeah, overall design is great. I think there's just a couple of details to iron out and to improve this one. Okay, let's have a look what Eli has created. I'm just going to quickly check if there's any comments. I don't see any comments yet. I do see we have a few people tuned in. So yeah, if you're watching, I hope you find this helpful. This is a very large viz. I can't display it on a single screen unless I zoom out, and then I can't read it. So let's have a look. We have another tile map. US workers earning minimum wage or less. Federal minimum. Oh my God, $7.25 an hour. That seems really low. Select the state by clicking on the map or hover over the rank to see how the percentage of American workers earning minimum. I think the same feedback applies again. So when you say how the percentage of American workers has changed, is that something you would Is it how you would talk? And I'm not suggesting we write exactly the way we talk, because it is a document in a way. It's a report. It's an interactive dashboard. But the complexity of describing it in this way, instead of using something a bit more colloquial or plain and simple, is something that I'm like, oh, okay, here's something I need to think about again. It's not as simple as it could be. So what could we say instead? Select the states. You could say select a state, because which state do you mean? When you say this state, I think you have something specific in mind. So you could say choose a state by clicking on the map. And I would probably do a full stop here. Alternatively, hover over the rank on the right, because people don't know what the rank is unless they scroll to the right and they are familiar with these with these types of charts. So alternatively, hover over the rank to see maybe something like to see the progress or lack thereof in each state when it comes to American workers earning minimum wage or less. And then I would explain what that looks like. So in the map, the darker the color, the higher the percentage. So the darker the color, the more workers there are at or below minimum wage. And on the right side, the top rank is actually the worst. And I would point that out, because my immediate thinking is, oh, if Louisiana's at the top, they're doing really well. But no, they're doing really poorly. So call that out specifically. Let people know how to read this chart. Always assume that people, they will probably understand the topic. Minimum wage, US workers, states, all that stuff is, you can assume they understand that. But don't assume they know how to interpret these charts. That would always be my guidance for creating these types of quizzes, especially with Maker Monday. Your audience is not necessarily data savvy, especially as you publish on social media. People might interpret all sorts of stuff. And this is a nicely designed viz. It could be picked up by someone to put into an article or something, and they might completely misinterpret it because they might just not be all that familiar with how to do it. So safeguard yourself and make sure that things are pointed out plain and simple. Okay. What else do we have? We have Stephen. Feedback is most welcome. Excellent. Let's have a look. So he has created, I suppose it's a tile map of sorts with a lot of empty tiles, because that's where there are no states. And then there's a line chart, percentage of American workers earning federal minimum wage or less. You are allowed to create your own headings, so you don't have to pick the original. There is no explanation. There's no legend. There is color being used, but no indication of how to read it. I think this viz, while I understand it, is it demands a lot of knowledge already from people who read it, from the viewer. So while you say at the bottom, and this is tiny, this is probably like an 8-point font, map shows share of all hourly workers earning federal minimum wage or less between 2015 and 2021. So I think it's fair to assume that people will interpret left to right to be, the time, but what the color means, I don't know. I genuinely don't know. What the line means, the dashed line, I also don't know. What's good, what's bad, I don't know. And it looks like the axes are not fixed. What are they? I really have no idea. So 6.2, 6.4. No, they are fixed. But what does the label at the, the percentage, does it relate to the most recent data? I don't think it does, because Oh no, the label refers to the reference line, but what's the reference line? What does that relate to? So that would be my feedback here. Okay, Jaroslav, let's have a look. What, oh, submission. US workers making minimum wage or less. Yeah, like I said, you're welcome to pick your own title. What is the percentage of workers? Okay, you're asking a question. You're not giving me the answer. Now, hover over each state to find out. There are 50 states. And there are, what, 6-7 years in this data set. There's like 300 data points. That's a lot of hovering for me to find out something that I don't even know if I'm really interested in because I don't know what the story is. So this is me playing devil's advocate. Of course, if you put, well, I don't want to say that, but if you make me do it, I will. But tell me something interesting that makes me want to explore the data more. So tell me that Louisiana, had the highest share of workers at or below minimum wage. Tell me that Oregon, is at the lowest. Like, tell me something interesting that makes me want to interact more and explore. You could even give people a bit of a task. Like, what state do you expect to have the highest percentage or the lowest percentage of workers at or below minimum wage? And okay, what's the solution? Which state is it actually? So those kind of things. Right now, you're asking a question, but you're not giving me the answer. You're telling me to find out by looking at 300 data points and comparing them in my head because there are no labels, there's no maximum, minimum, or any reference points. And that is going to lose my interest pretty quickly because I feel like, what am I getting out of this by doing all this interactivity without really a story behind it? Okay. I've looked at that. Yamil. Okay, where's the link? Here's the link. No. There's the link. Okie dokie. In 2021, what happened? In 2021, Delaware hourly workers paid below or exactly the federal minimum wage made up 2.4% of the workforce. There's a lot of color going on. If I just kind of randomly hover, like okay, so the chart moves. How can I find the state I'm looking for? If I want to, okay, I'm now down there. I don't know what's going on because if I hover over a line here, something changes. If I skip to the top, oh, it's Arkansas. But because my mouse hasn't moved, like it's on the same spot on the screen, it will update again. And I lost Arkansas. And out of the 50 lines in each of these columns, I don't know which one I looked at before. So visually interesting, very hard to use because of the interactivity being, well, at first it feels random, like, oh my God, what's going on? Something changed. But I don't have a way, drag to move. I don't know what that's all about. I don't have a way to go back to my line and I can't see what any of these lines mean. So it's a little bit like phone wires that aren't labeled, or these, all these cables in a cable box. So that's the main thing I would fix here. So okay, so let's have a think about Georgia. Paid below, okay, so below minimum wage. Where's the 2.2%? Like, I know that I can understand the colors relate to each of these columns, but is this just a ranking, or does this, if I very carefully hover, okay, it just gives me a rank. And then does the blue chart give me the percentage? It does not. You can select the state. Okay, this is just a massive list. So how can I see the percentage if I'm interested in that? I can't. Well, I can see it for 2021 in the title, but I can't really see it otherwise. I feel that it has a lot of potential and it's got really nice design, but I feel like I'm not in control of the viz. Like it does things without me knowing what it does or how I can control it. So have a bit of a think about that. There's Andy's. Oh, here's a different one. And I think there was a question. From Drew. What charts would be a good start for this Maker Monday? Well, it really depends on what you want to focus on with your story. So we've seen, oh, whoops, I've done that already. We've seen if somebody wants to focus on the states themselves, you can do a map. You don't have to. If you look at which state does best and which state performs worst, I would go personally for some sort of bar chart or ranking where it's very obvious, who's top, who's bottom, and label it accordingly. It doesn't have to be geographical. Geographical will draw the attention of the audience because people like looking at maps. So the type of chart you choose depends on the story you want to tell and the shape of the data, like what you're able to do or what you're able to with the data, but also the skills you have. Let's have a look at this viz. So created by Yusuke, workers making minimum wage or less. What's missing here is that this is about the US, and I will clarify that because the world is so big, there are many countries, and it should be clear that this relates to a specific country. Hi, oh, sorry, Maggie wants to say hello. Hi, sweetheart. Maggie, I'm still working. Yeah, I know. You need to let me finish, okay? Okay, can I finish now? You're a good girl. Okay, you have to get up. Okay, get up, good girl. Okay. For the percentage data, what does that mean for the percentage data from 2015 to 2021? I don't know what that means. The blue bar graph, I don't see blue, I see gray. And the font is gray as well, represents the range between the minimum and maximum values. Why do I need that? While the orange dot represents the value for the most recent year. I don't know if I understand this. Now, what I like is that they're sorted in the order of, like in descending order. So the highest percentage comes first. What I think isn't clear that this is that this means that the states at the top have the highest percentage of workers making minimum wage or less. So that is the worst performance because it means fewer people earn higher salaries or wages. I don't know. I don't really know what to do with the range. Yeah, I don't know. It's not really giving me anything helpful. I see all the states listed. I see the percentages, but I don't really see a story as such. That would be helpful to understand better. Okay. Let's have a look if we have another one. Takafumi. Okay. Also says, any feedback? Welcome. Excellent. So, a very Takafumi with this. I think I've seen this style before. Percentage of US workers making minimum wage or less. Okay. Highlight the state. Now, my first question is, the first thing I see is the blue dots, the percentage in Mississippi. And I wonder, why are we looking at Mississippi? Because it talks about US workers. So a little subtitle or description of, we're looking at all the states. Currently, Mississippi is selected, or, pick a state and give me that option before I then get the color legend. So let's say Kentucky. Let's have a look at Kentucky. So in Kentucky, we have the blue line is the percentage of minimum wage, there's below minimum wage, and there's total. What does total mean? Like total is not the percentage of total workers at all wages, it's the total at or below. So it's the combination of those two. I don't understand the red line. So is it the median across all states? Yeah, I don't understand the red line, and I don't really see a story. Like, again, it's making me do the work, but I don't really know for what benefit or what I'll get out of it. Okay, let's see if we can find another one. Okay, here we go. So, Nomu, this is a very different topic. Wrong link. Oh, I got just a bit distracted by the dog. So Stephen, well, we've looked at Stephen's viz, so that seems to be another iteration. Potato, tomato, LM7. Haven't seen work from LM7 in a long time. So let's have a look. Oh, this is very large. Let me see if I can make this a bit smaller. Okay, I'm going to have a quick read through this text. Both the number and percentage of the hourly workforce earning earning the minimum wage or lower has declined in recent years. Again, I feel a bit bombarded with just complexity. Like, I understand all of these words, right? But start with something simple. Think about if you were to present a viz, or if you were to present your work, you wouldn't launch straight into the detail. At least I hope you wouldn't. You would give people a bit of context. We're looking at this. This is why we're looking at it. There is a part of the workforce that is paid by the hour, and a certain percentage of the workforce is earning at or below the minimum wage. So this viz highlights how different states perform, how big a share of the workforce is in that category in each state, and then tell me, given the colors, the lighter the color, the better. So the smaller the percentage in that really low paid category, and the higher, of course, than the percentage in higher paid categories. Give me that. Don't just bombard me with metrics right from the beginning. And then I can't read the years behind the charts. I can kind of tell because I know what time frame it relates to. But I'm like, oh, is there something covered up? And it's basically impossible to compare these visits. Like, there's so many. There are 50 squares for each of these 6 years. So it's 300 squares that I'm being asked to compare visually. That's not really why we're doing data viz. Like, we're trying to make it easier for people to interpret information and to compare different data points. This makes it harder because I have to think of the state. I have to find each square in the equivalent chart or in this equivalent map. I have to look at the color, and then I can't really tell the difference between 2.1 and 2.3% because it's shading. It's a gradient with a dark background and a number behind the chart, and I have to move maybe from one chart to jump 2 across or jump 2 across and 1 down. It's basically impossible to get meaning out of that, and I'm not being told any highlights of what's in there that would give me a reference point. Changes in the overall average, again, tell me what that means, because that's quite hard to understand. So with that being said, I will come to the end. It's getting a bit late here, but I hope you found that helpful. I hope that while I repeat a number of the same suggestions every week, it's because they're important. It's because they will make your work better. It's usually the basics. It's don't overcomplicate stuff. Be clear and simple in the language you use. Be clear and simple in the charts you use, and describe your work. Don't be afraid to explain things in text, because chances are your audience will really appreciate it because they might not be sure of what the data tells them. So with that being said, have a great rest of the week. Enjoy building vizes, and if you're going to Tableau Conference next week, have an amazing time. And yeah, I'll be back possibly next week. We'll see how all of that goes. So, yep, take care, everyone. Enjoy your rest of the day and rest of the week. Bye.